So the assumption that we know to be false is that gravity is always attractive. Because in 1998, we discovered the universe is accelerating in its expansion, and that's a repulsive gravitation.
I like to ask a question. I mean, I'm not a science person at all, but the basic question: where the very first atom came from?
I don't know.
Nobody knows the answer.
Nobody knows the answer.
That's what I like about Phil. He's straightforward. He doesn't play around.
You must have pondered about it. You must have think about it.
Of course. But what we can do in science, what we can do is we can push the envelope of our knowledge back and back and back. Now, we've got it all the way back to the Big Bang, to appropriately define. Now we have to remember there's different ways to interpret the phrase Big Bang. It's not a phrase that has a definite definition. There are usually two ways to define it. One is based off singularity theorems, which, as we've said, are unreliable. I haven't gone into all the details as to why they're unreliable.
There's quite a few models on that.
Right, yeah. Okay. Now, there are people trying to push beyond the Big Bang and work out what happened before the Big Bang, if there was a Big Bang. We don't know for sure if there was. But if there was, there are people working on it.
There has to be something before the Big Bang.
I wouldn't say there has to be. There may or may not be.
Or something what it causes. There must be something what causes Big Bang. It can't be just out of thin air. Even thin air, a few gases.
Well, okay. I don't know. I mean, there are models where there is a before the Big Bang. And if I had to bet money, I probably would bet on.
Is there any model that there's nothing before Big Bang?
There are models like that. Yes.
Really?
Yes.
What they say?
No, the multiverse doesn't say whether there was or wasn't a before the Big Bang. Well, I mean, in the multiverse model, the Big Bang is one of many Big Bangs. Right? There are many Big Bangs.
Yeah, I heard about that. Yeah.
And there is some evidence for this. It's not,
but
super strong evidence. It's circumstantial.
That means there is something before Big Bang.
There would be. Yeah. But notion
or
of
our Big Bang we're talking about.
Okay.
So these models which believe there is something before the Big Bang, what do they suggest?
So the common theme is a bounce. So before the universe was expanding, it was contracting. So you would have something like an hourglass view of the universe. So our universe is expanding out to infinity, and the prior universe is contracting. Yeah. And there are different versions of this hourglass universe idea, but it's very popular now. And as you're seeing it in many, many different approaches, keep coming up with this hourglass universe. Now,
is that part of the multiverse?
It can be part of the multiverse. It's not just
an hourglass. Is it like an hourglass and another hourglass?
Yeah, well, it can be made part of the multiverse, so that there's a multiverse going this way and a multiverse going that way. Right? So it's not an essential part of the multiverse. You can have a multiverse without that. So it's not an essential part, but it could be. It's certainly Alan Guth, who is one of the main people proposing the multiverse, has suggested this, although he hasn't published a paper yet. Still working on it. Right, but we interviewed him and then he discusses this idea with us.
You've been studying this for a while?
Yeah, a little bit. Yeah, I went to UCL and I did my project on cosmology, but I'm not a cosmologist.
What is your feeling inside? Really, what?
Yeah, but in science we don't go on what our feeling. We go on the data.
No, which one really appeals you?
I like the bounce in the universe, I have to say. If that's, but I don't say.
The universe means something
the
before the Big Bang.
Yes.
So before this Big Bang, there was something before.
Yes.
Another universe or another Big Bang.
Yeah. Well, you could say it was the same universe that's contracting with the Big Bang. That's a semantic issue.
Because
but that itself is this. Do you think there's data and evidence to support that?
No. I don't claim that. He asked me what my gut was, and if I had to go my gut, that's my gut. But I do not claim that that's right. We only say it's right when the data comes in. Yeah. So there's no claim.
What about the space-time continuum? You think it's always existed?
I don't know. If I had to make a guess, I'd probably guess it always existed.
It has to start somewhere.
I don't see why it has to start somewhere.
Because space defines what you just mentioned about the universe. The universe always existed. Then space always existed.
Yeah.
But that's what I'm saying. Is there any data to support that?
No, as I say, the real answer in terms of data is we don't know. So I think you asked me what my gut was.
No, he asked.
Sorry, you asked me. And now, if I had to make a guess, if I had to bet, that's what I would bet. Would I bet I wouldn't bet my house on it.
The reason I asked was, correct me if I'm wrong, brother, we Muslims actually believe this universe started from the Big Bang.
No, the Big Bang is like
That's the beginning of this universe.
Allah created things before the Big Bang. We believe that.
That's Arsh we're talking about, the throne.
Not only the Arsh, other things. But anyway, that's
Okay, you have to be careful when you say
the Big Bang came. This theory came like quite recently.
1920s.
Yeah. So it's not, before that also we believe that Allah created things. I mean, for us it's like there is a being.
Allah says in the Quran, everything was joined together. We are opening the center. That's a big thing in nutshell, isn't it?
The sky.
Which
Talk about the sky.
Surah Anbiya.
Yeah, but you have to, you
Allah says everything was together.
And everything doesn't mean everything. You know what I mean? Like you said, the Arsh. The Arsh is not part of that. But anyway, we are delving into metaphysical and physical and theology.
Yeah, I think you have to be careful. One, how you define things even in theology, like they use the term heavens, but what does that really mean?
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah, it's not clear that it means the same thing that we understand.
No, even in the Quran, the word heavens or samawat, when it talks about, depending on the context, it can mean different things.
Exactly. So people have to be careful. Like people quote the Bible and do the same thing. But I knew a bit of Hebrew because I was brought up Jewish. And the phrase in the Bible, it says God created the heavens and the earth. But I should be better translated as God created the land and the sky. Because land, the word used, the Hebrew word is eretz. Eretz means land. Okay?
Obviously, when they say heaven, do you think they mean like the paradise?
I think they mean the sky.
Yeah, that's what they meant.
That's what I think they meant. But to them, what we understand is heaven's the universe, if you like, and the sky, to them it was the same thing, right? It wasn't,
you see, the Quran doesn't just say, the Quran says Sabah Samawat, means the seven skies, the seven heavens.
Yeah, see, to me
now, that's different. You see, that's not just the sky we see.
Well,
it talks about the metaphysical, which we don't see.
Yeah, but
isn't it based on some?
Yeah, if you look at the history of astronomy, the view that there were seven heavens was based off a model of cosmology that goes back to at least to Mesopotamia and the ancient Greeks. That you see that they have a model of cosmology where the Earth is central. And of course, there were seven objects that don't move with the background stars: the Sun, the Moon, and the 5 planets. Right? I mean, we know now there are more than 5 planets, but they didn't know. So they had 7 heavens. Right? That was the model. You see this in ancient models of cosmology.
I mean, that might be their interpretation.
Right.
But obviously, you cannot superimpose that on what the Islamic interpretation is.
Sure, you can say they mean something different.
Because the number 7 is quite common in so many different ways.
But it's, to me, if you mean something different to what the rest of the ancient world means, then that's at least confusing or misleading. Do you know what I mean?
Why should it be the same?
Well,
for example, I can say something today, and somebody else can say something similar, maybe 1,000 years from today, and we both meant different things. It might sound similar.
If everyone says, okay, let's take the statement of heliocentric model of the universe. Right, okay. Right. So what I understand as heliocentric is that the Earth goes around the Sun. But someone else could interpret it as the Sun is the centre of the whole universe. Right? Someone could interpret it that way. But we don't interpret it that way now, do we? Absolutely. Right? If I said I believe in heliocentrism, you wouldn't think that I meant the Sun was at the centre of the universe. Right? You have an understanding of what people understand as that term. So if you use this term, 7 heavens, in the ancient world, and so many other ancient cosmologists all understand one thing, 7 heavens, to me, the most simplest explanation is the people that wrote the Quran understood the same thing.
No, because the Quran says Sabah Samawat wal Ard. And this is actually talking about 2 different things. So the Ard itself is talking about the earth, and the Samawat is talking about the heavens. So the Arabic terminology is very clear as to what is talking about. But what actually is meant by that terminology in the context of the verse then it depends on what you define.
Yeah, see what I'm arguing, I guess, is that you have to put the context of the world that it was written in as well, and what people understood as that term.
And that's why I told you I can say the same thing, and somebody else can say the same thing, but they both might mean completely different things.
This is the difficulty when people start claiming that there's science in ancient religious texts, is that you can interpret these words in different ways, and you can interpret it in a way that fits what you want. And that's the difficulty. So when people say, you know, the Big Bang is written about in this verse, I'm very skeptical. You can interpret these phrases in different ways, you know, and you make it fit what you want it to do, because that's what the brain does.
I think science is similar thing. Like for example, the Big Bang, the reason you have so many.
Yeah, I agree. In some things, some terms of science are not well defined.
I mean,
so in that sense, you're right.
Even evolution has so many different models. So you
you're
talk
right.
about the same, phenomenon, but then they have different models to explain the same thing in a different way.
Right.
And sometimes drastically different.
Yeah, you're right. There are different. There are terms that have multiple meanings. Yeah.
Not just terms. I'm talking about the actual phenomenon, the concept itself.
Right. Well, I mean, if you take Big Bang for example, there are at least two definitions of the Big Bang. One is that it's an evolution of a universe from a singularity, which I think most people don't believe anymore. And I can go back to
one particle.
It's not a particle. I mean, that was a phrase that Georges Lemaitre used. He called it a primeval atom. But it's really
from one point.
It's not really one point. It's a misunderstanding. It's better to think of it.
Way of explaining.
It's an oversimplification. The notion would be the density of the universe is infinity. That's what the singularity is. Yeah. So density. If you think about the expansion of the universe, it's like a grid, right, with points on a grid. When the universe is expanding, those points are getting further apart. So if there was a singularity, then the statement would be the distance between the points on the grid is zero. Yeah. So the density is infinity, right? And therefore the curvature is infinity. Therefore the pressure and the temperature are also infinity.
That is why this is not my favorite topic.
Okay. No, it's hard. Okay. But the singularity theorems, as we said, are based on assumptions that are probably invalid. Okay. So another way to define Big Bang is an evolution from a hot, dense state. Okay. Now that doesn't rely on the singularity theorems. That just says the universe was hotter and denser in the past. It's evolving, right? From a hot, dense state to a diffuse, cold state, right? Now that is not up for debate. That's just confirmed science. There's no real debate about that.
But I don't think Muslims would have a problem with that anyway.
No, they wouldn't.
Yeah.
No. Right. No. But then you can say the inflationary period, which is a period of rapid expansion that we believe happened, that happened before the Big Bang. Because during inflation, the universe is cold, right? And it only heats up. The universe
happened before the Big Bang.
Yeah.
Explain that.
Okay, so we're defining Big Bang now.
We're talking about the time, what do you call that, the jumping?
Planck time, is it?
No, this is after the Planck time. This is not before the Planck time. So, as I said, there's two... No. It said there's two, I told you there's at least two ways. You might be able to come up with some other ways. At least two ways to define Big Bang. One way to define it is with a singularity. But as I said, the singularity theorem...
What do you call that? Is that the evolutionary model? What do you call it?
Well, they're both evolutionary models, okay? Because the universe is evolving in these models, right? But as I said, the singularity theorems are dodgy, right? They have assumptions that are at least one of them. I think most cosmologists would say, I mean, we've made films with Penrose and Hawking that these theories are called Penrose-Hawking singularity theorems. And we've made films with Penrose and making them with Hawking. Neither of them think the singularity theorems are applicable to the universe. But they have assumptions that are invalid. Yeah? They're good mathematics, of course, they're excellent mathematics, but they follow valid logically from their assumptions. But any mathematical physical theory of the universe has assumptions that you can challenge, right? So, can you challenge the assumption of singularity theorems? Absolutely you can. And most cosmologists, I think, would say the biggest assumption of singularity theorem is that Einstein's theory is describing gravity, right? And no quantum effects. But if you have an entire universe smaller than an atom, well then quantum effects are inevitable. So therefore, that assumption of a singularity theorem is almost certainly invalid. Yeah. Therefore, we don't think the singularity represents something that actually exists in the universe. Rather, it's just a breakdown of Einstein's theory, and it has to be replaced by a new theory, a theory of quantum gravity. So, theories of quantum gravity have been tried, but no one knows. These theories have not been validated with experiment, so we don't know if any of them are correct. Right? We don't know if any of them are correct, but some of them have made, if you like, theoretical progress. They've shown that they can solve certain puzzles, certain problems that are present in classical theories. So, and those theories seem to imply the universe exists before them. Right, but we don't know yet. But anyway, so that's a separate issue. If you say, like, let's define the Big Bang not as an evolution from a singularity, because the singularity is, you know, dodgy, but rather, most, I think, cosmologists would say, and the ones we've interviewed have said, is that better to define the Big Bang as an evolution from a hot, dense state. Okay, now that all the experiments agree with. And it doesn't rely on dodgy singularity theorems. Okay, so in that case, we just define Big Bang as evolution from a hot dense state. Then the inflationary period, which most cosmologists, although there are a few doubters, but most cosmologists think the universe underwent this period of inflation. That would happen before the Big Bang, because during inflation the universe is cold, and the hot dense state happens only when inflation ends. In which case, inflation happens before the Big Bang, not afterwards. Although a lot of textbooks don't address that subtlety.
Yeah, because it's always been that.
You'll see in a textbook, you'll see singularity, inflation, right? But that is not really reflecting, I think, current cosmology.
Modern views, because we've always been.
That's true. Well, we've made a film with the people that invented the singularity theorems, and Alan Guth, who is the inventor of inflation, and also we interviewed Georges Stathiou, who is. Well, we have a series of them. They're called Before the Big Bang. We have 4 episodes, and they're each about.
Been released?
Yeah, 4 of them have been released. One is currently being made, so we're editing it now. And so they're on YouTube. You can watch them whenever you like. If you go on YouTube, type in Before the Big Bang, Skydive Phil, okay, then you will find those films. And we interview Roger Penrose, Alan Guth. Stephen Hawking is being edited now. Yeah, that is tricky. Yeah. The bottom line is that the picture that you see with singularity, it's not reflecting contemporary views. Yeah? The contemporary view is that singularity theorems are not to be trusted. Yeah? They're dodgy. Yeah, but not in terms of the mathematics. The mathematics is very elegant. I don't want to discredit that. They're beautiful theorems, but they follow from assumptions. And those assumptions can be questioned. And in fact, certainly with the idea that gravity, so there's actually 3 assumptions. One is that gravity is always attractive, but dark energy shows that that's not valid. Second assumption is a technical one. I won't go too much into it. The technical assumption is that space-time is described in what's called a Lorentzian framework. And in fact, both Penrose and Hawking are challenging that assumption. Yeah. So what Penrose says is that actually, when you get to the very early universe, the space-time is described by a different form. It's called a conformal description. The conformal description is quite esoteric. You'll have to watch the video to get it more detail. But the simplest explanation is that conventional notions of space and time break down, and that is because notions of space and time rely on clocks and rulers. So if you're going to talk about space and time, you need to have a clock to measure time and a ruler to measure space. Okay? But it turns out that those, so you know that in Einstein's theory E equals mc squared, right? So energy and mass are therefore related to each other. But also there's another equation, E equals h nu, which is frequency, right? So frequency and mass are related by these 2 equations. So therefore, time, which is basically frequency, it's something that's moving, like a pendulum, right? So if you have no mass, lose these notions of space and time. And you have to replace them with a different notion of space and time, which are called conformal transformations. And what Penrose, this is somewhat of an esoteric idea, right? What he's claiming is that the assumption of Lorentzian space-time is invalid. Interestingly, Hawking says the same thing, but in a different way. He thinks you can replace this Lorentzian space-time with something called Euclidean space-time, where you have, instead of 3 dimensions of space and 1 of time, you have 4 dimensions of space and no dimensions of time. So that's not a universe that's eternal in some sense, right? Because it doesn't have an eternity of time, but it doesn't have a unique beginning point either, because it's this space and time kind of get fuzzy, and now you have just space. So is that a universe that's eternal, or it's kind of ambiguous in some sense, right?
Makes sense, actually.
Well, it makes sense mathematically. Whether it's actually valid physically, you can debate, right? So there's a lot of debate going on about the nature of the Big Bang.
Yeah, no, definitely.
And a lot of apologists, both Muslim and Christian, they are saying that modern cosmology supports the notion of the universe as a beginning, and that's, I think, invalid. The modern cosmology is much more debating whether the universe had a beginning or whether it did not. It may have done, but we don't know that it did.
Right, we'll go pray. So nice talking to you.
All right, cheers.
Always good to learn.